Okay, so it's asking you in this question to really get in and explain the Bohr model of the hydrogen atom. It says that there's an electron and it removes, there's a photon that's emitted when an electron moves from quantum level 5 to quantum level 2. And then it gives you the frequency for that photon. And then it asks you, do you expect the frequency of a photon from a transition between 3 and 2 to be higher or lower, and to explain. And so again, this is one of those things where you need to be able to reproduce the diagram of electromagnetic radiation. I'm not going to reproduce the whole thing, but you need to be able to come up with the idea is the energy of photons, frequency and energy directly proportional or indirectly proportional. We'll talk about that in a second. You also need to be able to reproduce a model of the Bohr model of the atom. And so in the Bohr model of the atom, we have a nucleus, and around the nucleus, we have electron orbitals or orbits for the Bohr model. But nonetheless, each one of the orbits of the electron that are possible are represented by a quantum level, n equals. Now, if you draw this diagram correctly, you notice one thing. Each one of these levels, the spacing gets closer and closer together. And the reason is that the energy that it takes to get from level 1 to level 2 is more than the energy that it takes to get to from level 2 to level 3, and then again from level 3 to level 4, and again from level 4 to level 5. The energy increases in this pattern. That's important to know. Now, let's go back to the energy for the photon. We should know that energy is directly proportional to frequency. And so what that means, and this is from our electromagnetic spectrum diagram, is that if the energy goes up, then the frequency goes up too. And so we know that from being able to draw our electromagnetic spectrum and relate it to energy, wavelength, and frequency. Okay, so now let's get into this particular problem. There's two different transitions. One transition is an electron that transitions between 5 and 2, and it emits a photon, and that photon has a frequency that's equal to 6.91 times 10 to the 14th hertz. Then it says, now consider an electron that transitions between 3 and 2. It's going to emit a photon as well. And is its frequency higher or lower than the other? Explain. And what you're doing is you're using the diagram to explain it. What the explanation that you're going to come up with will involve the fact that the spacing in these quantum levels gets smaller and smaller and smaller. That means, now that we think about it, the transition between 5 and 2 has got to be larger than the transition between 3 and 2, because the transition between 5 and 2 includes the transition between 3 and 2, and it includes extra energy. So if this is the frequency for the transition between 5 and 2, then the frequency for 3 to 2 has to be lower. And that's the explanation.